I don't know, I just want to smile at you. Hi. Welcome to Musings of Them. This is Tales by Moonlight, another one, where I share my story, my perspectives, the insights that I gained along my healing, holistic healing, and spiritual journey. I'm dibia, nchedochukwu, and I'm going to open up this space. Oh, that was kind of weak. There we go. Setting the intention that I am a clear channel of the highest truth, rooted in love, with clarity, insight. Today, that as you exist in energetic space with me, as you hear me, see me, you may receive healing energy. I always like to add that little whoop in, if I'm going to be channeling, you might as well get a little energy for you, healing for you. Yeah, let's get started. So this is part 2 of my toxic relationship story, as well as karmic story. I ended off in the last video about the end of a really, really toxic relationship where I was dealing with someone who showed a lot of narcissistic traits and very covert. I didn't know at the time, but because of the childhood conditioning I experienced because I had a narcissistic father, I stayed because I didn't think I deserved better. I didn't think that, I thought it was my job to stay, right? In a relationship that wasn't serving me, in a relationship I was sacrificing parts of myself. And eventually I couldn't leave. I didn't feel like I had the strength to leave, honestly, because I was exhausted. That relationship so much out of me that when I did eventually leave, even though I left the relationship, I was still connected to this person. And so you would think that, after a horrible relationship like this, I would have, I don't want to say learn my lesson, because that's not a compassionate way. That's not compassionate towards myself. I would have taken a break. But the thing is, like, the end of that situation, even though we weren't together, at the end of, even though shit hit the fan, we weren't together, coincided with the next relationship, which was definitely a karmic relationship. And the thing about karmic relationships is that these are people who we on a soul level, let me just tell the story. And I can talk about the karmic stuff later. So while I was dealing with the end of this last situation, I had started to explore my sexuality and date. It was more like be intimate with other people and trying to understand what felt good in my body and how I wanted to be in intimacy with other bodies. And I had met someone on Tinder, good old Tinder, y'all, good old Tinder, online dating. And it was, we started off as, let's just see where it goes, no strings attached. And very quickly, I had never in that point in time felt that much sexual chemistry with another human being. And it quickly escalated. The situation with her was one that it went like, yeah, we just met, now we're intimate, maybe we should be together. But there was this more complicated that. The point of the matter was that even in this beginning, there was something in me telling me, you should slow down. Again, the intuition speaking to me. And I wasn't, at this point, listening because, it was physically, it felt good. And I thought at the time that chemistry was compatibility. Having chemistry with someone was compatible. And so I entered into a quick relationship with this person, even though I was still reeling from the situation of this previous person I was dealing with. Now, the thing with this particular person was that because I felt, oh my God, I have never felt this way, I've never connected with someone physically in this way, this was it. It was meant to be. And the thing was that this person also had narcissistic tendencies. They also had their own level of issues that they were working through. Now, at this point in my life, again, I was more naive towards understanding was ignorant, had lack of knowledge around understanding how trauma really impacts someone as a child, but it also carries on into adulthood, and how from a soul perspective, karmic relationships exist, right? It was my lesson to learn empowerment through the childhood issues and traumatic experiences I experienced, and that would in part play out through my personal relationships. And so I quickly found myself in a relationship with someone who wasn't as affectionate or emotionally available for me. At this time, I had an anxious attachment. It was more of like a disordered attachment because it was very inconsistent parenting I received from my main caregiver. And the other person that I was dealing with, she had an avoidant attachment. And then together, it really created a situation of a codependency where, when we're together, it was always together. And it was becoming heavily focused on, I need to do everything with you. Without you in my life, I don't know what life would be. And that's extremely unhealthy, y'all. It was extremely unhealthy. And I was in an extremely unhealthy place, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And so this relationship progressed in a way in which, because of the chemicals going on in my body, of the physical chemistry, I ignored the lack of emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy. Because it was just fun. It was fun. It was great. It was completely different from what I had experienced before, and thus I thought it was the one. And so I ended up being engaged to this person. And because I was exploring different relationship configurations, it became messy very quickly to have unhealthy people in a codependent dynamic with someone I expressing more of the codependent tendencies and the other person expressing more of the narcissistic tendencies. Very quickly, I began to pour and pour and pour into this person. I poured and poured and poured, and nothing was given back in return because I just really loved her, y'all. Like, I truly was in love with her. And because I was in love, I didn't know and understand at the time that, yeah, you can pour into someone, you can continue to give, but you gotta make sure you receive back in return. There was a lack of reciprocity because the conditioning from my childhood was one in that I would continue to give and give and give and give, and I didn't even think about whether I was receiving, if it was a balanced relationship. And so I gave and gave and gave and gave and gave and gave, put out, put out, put out, put out, put out. And ultimately I became drained and drained and drained and drained and drained. Because they had narcissistic tendencies, it didn't matter how much I gave, they were never really satiated. You continue to give supply. The supply is never enough because the supply for a narcissist is to feel the hole inside of worth, self-worthiness, self-insecurity, which can never be filled by an external person. But I was still in the mindset of wanting to fix. Oh, I can fix this person. I can heal this person. Very quickly realized I can't heal nobody. The only person I can heal is myself. The only person I can fix, and it's not even fix, because no one needs fixing. We are all whole inside. It's just the uncovering and the unfolding of the wholeness. But that is myself. And so I put myself second to this human being because I was just so in love with them. I put myself second. And in putting myself second, I betrayed myself. Continually giving and giving and giving and sacrificing to them. To the point where I got put into a third-party situation. Again, I was practicing alternative arrangements. And the thing about being poly or any other arrangements outside of strictly monogamy is you need to have clear, healthy communication and boundaries and be able to express one's needs. And I was doing at this point, the best that I could in doing that. Because I learned a little something from my last relationship was that, you know what, I need to communicate more needs. But again, because in the beginning of the relationship, I had given and given and given and given and given and given so much of myself, it had set the expectation that that was what was going to continue. So when I finally put my foot down and said, hold up, if we're going to be doing this thing, it needs to be done right, in a healthy way. She had some issues with that. Hold up, you're trying to stop the giving now? Stop the sacrificing now? Why can't you just do what I want you to do? Why can't you just do what I need you to do? She got so used to hearing yes, that when eventually I said no, it was surprising, y'all. Because even early on within me, I was feeling something that was telling me this isn't right. I'm so in love with this person. We're having amazing physical chemistry, but it's not feeling right. Something's off. Eventually, because of the third party situation, it ended. And I made the decision to end because I wasn't being respected. I wasn't being respected. And I remember leaving our shared room together. There's another room downstairs, and she's asking, like, oh, you're moving out? I was like, well, we're not together anymore. And if I don't respect myself, who will? If I don't respect myself, who will? I had allowed the disrespect for long enough that it had become the norm. And I got to a place where my soul was literally, again, my barometer is looking around and being like, is this it? Is this it for me? And I couldn't. I said, this ain't it. This ain't it. I deserve more than this. Better than this. And there is, in my ending of that relationship, of walking away, the depth of heartbreak and loss I felt was like no other. To end a relationship with someone I thought would be forever. I thought this is my person. This would be my partner for life. But the circumstances were such that if I stayed in it, I would be disrespecting myself, demeaning myself, and I couldn't do that any longer. I told myself, because of the previous relationship, y'all, where I had stayed in that relationship for like 2.5 years, and I had another 1.5 years of some situationship shit, that I would never do that again. And so this one, it lasted much shorter than that. It didn't last that long. However, because I was in love, it was like tearing my own heart out. I was ripped my own heart out and I stomped on it. And I was devastated. Absolutely devastated that I had to do that. Because I didn't want to. But something in me was saying, you can't do this to yourself. You can't do this to yourself. And in the devastation, in the breaking of my own heart, it was such a depth of grief and loss within myself. I have never felt that sense of loss before for any person. That I began to search for answers, y'all. It spun me into such a dark place. I needed to have answers. Like, why? How could I love someone so deeply and it not work out? How can I have such great physical chemistry with someone and it not work out? I thought love was enough. I thought love was enough. And so I searched for answers. It just so happened that I got a job right after this whole situation ended, where I was in a third party situation. I ended up having to move to a new state for a job I got, and that was part of the issue. was moving to a new state and feeling like this person was trying to replace me with another human being. I moved to this new state and I was like, I need help because I am so devastated. I don't even know if I can work. I don't know if I can start work. So I moved to this, the new state on a Friday, and I had to start work on a Monday. And over the weekend on, I think it was Friday and Saturday, I was searching, y'all. I was searching for help. I was like, do I need to go to church? I was like, no, I can't go back to church. At the point I had left the church, there was no going back. I can't go back to that. I was looking up different spiritualists and healers. I was doing all the research. I found a Babalawo, which is a Nigerian Yoruba priest. And I was like trying to reach out to them, and they didn't have availability. And then eventually I stumbled upon a psychic. And this psychic had availability on a Monday. No, it was on a Sunday, y'all. That weekend, the day before I was going to start work, it was on a Sunday. I was able to see this psychic. And then began my spiritual journey. My spiritual awakening was triggered by the deep sense of loss and grief I experienced in ending my engagement. Because I had to have answers. And I was willing at this point, I was open to any kind of answers. And so I walked into that woman's place because she used like an apartment she rented out for her services and her offerings. I walked in not knowing what to expect. I'd never been to a psychic before in my life. The only thing I knew was I needed answers as to how this could happen to me, how I could have so much love and seemingly attraction and all that for another human being and it not work out. And frankly, if we were going to get back together again, I wanted to know if it was going to work out. I was like, what can we do? What can I do? I was in the mindset of what can I do to make this work? What do I need to do? At this point, I wanted to still something in me wanted to salvage it, right? Because I didn't want to lose it fully, to think that I failed in this relationship. And so I walked in and she didn't even ask any questions. She sat down, I sat down, and she started to read the cards. And as she read the card, she was telling me my situation exactly, and I was astounded. I was like, what is this? What is this? A magic? How is this possible? How could someone tell me my situation and not ask me any questions? I was shook. And in that reading, she told me some stuff I didn't want to hear. This is not your person. This is not the person you're meant to be with. This person is a bit narcissistic. And again, there were some things I didn't want to hear and I couldn't have the capacity to fully accept at the time. But that, again, this heartbreak, this ending of this situation, which was a karmic situation that was meant to trigger my awakening, my spiritual awakening, and with spiritual awakening, you begin to see the world from a spiritual perspective, beyond just a three-dimensional, this is what you touch, taste, and see, was because of that relationship and the ending of it, which broke my heart to pieces so light could come into the spaces within myself that I had not seen and had not yet healed. It brought to my attention the propensity to attract narcissistic people because I still had that energy stream, the traumatic imprint within me. And that energy lived within me. It lived within my heart. It lived within my subconscious because of my childhood. And seeing that reader sparked me. Because through that reader, I was able to not only get a reading, we did some energy healing as well. She helped me cut cords with this person that I was engaged with. And really guided me through the process as a spiritual coaching to begin to see life from a higher perspective. She told me things 4 years ago that came true yet last year. She predicted things about my life I didn't even see for myself, and I was just like, yeah, okay, you saying all of this stuff, but all right, and it all came true. Some of it hasn't, but majority of it did. And so my ability to connect with this woman on a psychic, energetic level opened up my eyes to see the world from a different perspective. A perspective I wouldn't have if I had not gone through this karmic relationship. So not only was she my trigger, she catalyzed my spiritual awakening. And I was so rooted in like, oh my God, this is my soulmate. Oh my God, is this my twin flame? Oh my God, am I meant to be with this person? Which wasn't the point of the relationship at all. The point was to awaken me. The point was to get me to see, through loving and losing, the world differently. So she was a karmic relationship. And the thing about karmic relationships is they are there to teach us, to show us, to trigger within us our wounds, our pains, so that we can see what is in the way of us being our most full and whole selves, and to prepare us for the relationship we are meant to be in. That's not who I was meant to be with. But it was because of that I was able to start the process of healing, intentionally healing my past, intentionally connecting with my spiritual team, being curious about the spiritual world, being curious about tarot, being curious about energy reading, being curious about energy healing. A couple months after the whole breakup and the devastation, I took my first Reiki level 1 and 2 class. My first foray into energy healing. Now, Reiki is the channeling of divine energy through a specific set of symbols and procedures that a person created. But I don't need to do Reiki in that way because I'm not just a Reiki practitioner. I can channel other vibrations of divine energy. And so this relationship I was in that devastated me, y'all, the ending of my engagement and the ex-fiance, broke me open so I could begin to awaken and ascend spiritually. I wouldn't be sitting here without the relationship, and because of that, I'm so grateful for them and the role they played, because even before we reincarnated in our human forms, in the spiritual realm, we had a contract that said we would play this role for each other. We would come into each other's lives and we would trigger each other and act as the catalyst to each other's spiritual growth and development. She was meant to play that role in my life, but she wasn't meant to stay in my life in that way. But in the beginning, I was so attached to the role that she had played that I couldn't see her in any other way. It took a lot of healing and a lot of spiritual growth and connecting and understanding the universe and how we work as humans to begin to see that, she did me a solid. She hurt me. I was so hurt in that relationship. I won't say she hurt me because that puts me in a position of victimization, but I experienced so much hurt and pain through her actions. The gaslighting, the lies, the deceit regarding the third-party situation we were in, and also where I realized the larger, just who she was in general. That it made me open my eyes about what I was accepting and willing to receive from others. If I had not been willing to let go and to do the healing, the cord cutting, the energy healing, the trauma healing, I would have stayed in that relationship, thinking I could have made it work, sacrificing myself, accepting less than I deserved, because something in me was still saying, remember y'all, the reason I left was because I was like, this ain't it. It's not feeling right. It's not feeling right. I listened to my feelings. I honored them. I didn't care how, and I say feelings, yes, I was in love with her, but I also felt a deep sense of unease. I was like, this is not feeling right. I'm not being treated right. I'm not being respected. I'm being lied to. I'm being gaslighted. And I'm recognizing these from my previous relationship. When you hold on to the karmic relationships, you don't allow space for these other true relationships that are aligned to your soul to come through. It took me some time to heal from that relationship. And unfortunately, y'all, I tried to enter another relationship about like 6 months after, and I wasn't ready. And that relationship ended just as terribly, y'all. I hadn't learned the lessons and I had not healed. I was in the process of it, but I hadn't healed. And this was yet another karmic relationship. It was like during the pandemic, where I was trying to be in a relationship with someone who I wanted to uplift. Not realizing that, again, everybody's worthy and deserving of love, but not everybody's worthy and deserving of your love. Not in that way. And I didn't realize that for myself. And so this person, the next person, ended up walking out on me twice. And interestingly enough, before she walked on me on the second and last time, she said something in our conversation that was very, very salient. She was like, I think we should focus on ourselves. And I was just, something in me was not for that. But it also rang true. And I knew then, this is how the universe, spirit speaks to me through other people at times, because I can be hard-headed. But saying, you need to focus on yourself. Stop trying to be in a relationship. Focus on yourself. And I kept getting that message throughout that short-term relationship, right? This is the third person, not the ex-fiance. And then that one didn't last. The person who walked out on me twice. And that relationship, I was done, y'all. I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm done having people treat me like shit. Not only did she walk out on me twice, but she was living with me. And then she had the nerve to accuse me for being abusive. And at that point, I was like, yeah, all right. Sometimes I accept I'm the villain in your story, but I can't do anything about it. And again, traumatized as well as a child. And I was just so tired trying to be with people who weren't committed to their help, to their own healing and development. You know, I'm trying to reach up. I'm trying to pull you out in this relationship. I feel like I was trying to pull her out of a dark ditch. She was trying to pull me into it. To drag me down with her. But I got the lesson the third time, y'all. Third time's a charm, really is, honestly, for myself speaking. And I had got the message from the divine that, okay, all right now, I need to focus on myself. I need to heal. And it was after that last relationship, that too was a karmic relationship. I learned some lessons there. That I began to seriously, I could admit myself, and I was like, all right, no more dating, no more sex. It's just, I really need to focus on myself. And I've been single and celibate since then. Because I was wild out back then. After the end of the relationship, I was like, after my engagement, and during, when I was with my ex-fiance, it was very wild, right? And the thing is, I didn't understand then energy. That when you share yourself intimately with someone, that you are sharing your energy, that person is going to be in your energy field. You're creating energetic ties to that person. Yeah, you can break the ties. That's relatively simple to do, but you are creating it. Each time you engage with someone intimately, you are doing that. So imagine the type of people you are engaging with intimately. And I had to think about that to myself. Who do I want to share this intimate energy with? And so after that last relationship where I was walked out on twice, I decided, you know what? That has to stop. I can't be sharing my intimate energy with people in that way until I heal whatever is in me that is attracting one and accepting these people into my life. Because one thing to attract, you could attract everything. You could be a light, you could attract moths, butterflies, those little bugs that like go out in the summertime that like clump and you're like, they're just so little and they just swirl. You can attract a lot of things. But I was attracting and allowing into my life because there was something in me that I didn't believe that I deserved more. The first relationship, I was desperate. I was desperate, y'all. Second one, I let my growing speak. I thought that physical intimacy and being in love was enough, and I realized that wasn't the case. The third one, I was just really eager to settle. I was eager to settle, y'all. I just wanted to be in a relationship. Not desperate, but settled. And so I had to do a lot of deep inner searching to be able to even acknowledge this stuff about myself without shame or guilt, without placing a judgment on myself about how I got into the relationships or what that said about me, but more focused on the healing of the wounding, the healing of the limiting beliefs. I learned a lot in those relationships. All of them were karmic. And the lessons I learned was just how I saw my self-worth. It was the false ideology that love is enough. Sometimes we think, oh my God, I love you. I love you so much. So we must be together. No. I realized not only was it not enough, intellectual compatibility, emotional compatibility, spiritual compatibility is important. Being understood is important. Being with someone who is willing to put in the work, willing to grow and develop themselves is important. Many people don't want to grow. And it's interesting, I had one of my spiritual mentors who also taught me Reiki, and I got a Reiki master certification with, said her father once told her, not everybody's trying to be a butterfly. And what that meant is not everybody is trying to grow from a caterpillar and trying to transform into the highest version of themselves. So, you go from first you go from a larvae, and then you go from a caterpillar, and you're on the ground or you're on the tree, and then the caterpillar enters a cocoon, turns into goo, y'all. A caterpillar literally turns into goo, like gooey mush. And from that gooey mush, reforms itself into a butterfly. And then that butterfly in the cocoon has to fight its way out of the cocoon, uses its strength to fight its way out the cocoon, to gain strength in its wings. If you open the cocoon, let's say the butterfly's form, you open the cocoon, that butterfly will not be able to fly. It takes tension for it to gain strength in its wings to be able to fly. So it enters the cocoon, it fights its way out of the cocoon, and then it has to learn how to take flight. Not everybody's trying to go through that process of development to be their highest self, to be aligned to their highest timeline. Not everyone's trying to do that. Some people are very much okay being a caterpillar. And she told me that, and I realized, that's true. I was allowing myself to be with people who weren't interested in being the butterfly. who aren't interested in growth and transformation, because that is hard. Transformation isn't easy. It's not comfortable. It is very uncomfortable. It is unfamiliar. It means having to be in spaces of unknown, having to dig deep. And I have always been willing to do that work. That has been my MO since I was a kid. I was like, I'm just trying to get better, be better, and get out of here. Do what I need to do so I can be happy. And I'm not talking about happy in a superficial sense, but happy on a soul level. I'm gonna do that. And I was partnering myself with people who couldn't make me where I was, who weren't my equals in that. And I realized that. I didn't realize that until I allowed myself to focus on myself and to begin to see my worth. Because the thing is, like, all those relationships, y'all, were cutting away at my self-worth, cutting away at my self-esteem, cutting away at my self-confidence, until I couldn't even see who I was. I couldn't see my own light. I couldn't see what I brought to the table. I couldn't see my value. I couldn't see my power. But each time those relationships cut me down, I had to gather myself, rest, and then get back up again. And in the process, I developed strong muscles, leg muscles, very strong, very strong. And as I did so, I began to gain a strength and resilience within myself. Empowerment isn't easy. If you have reincarnated into this life to learn the lesson of self-empowerment on a soul level, it's not an easy path. Because all throughout these relationships, I was wondering, why do I keep attracting this shit? Because I wasn't empowered. I didn't assert my needs. I wasn't firm in who I was and what was for me. I didn't put myself first. I kept sacrificing. And I was pouring into people who didn't have it to pour back into me. Here I am pouring in a gallon. I'm like, here's my gallon, y'all. And my gallon of love. Let me pour it into your cup. I'm pouring in my gallon. And then I'm like, all right, what you got? And they have a little teaspoon. And they give me a drop. And I dare to ask for more. And I'm like, whoa, you asking for too much. You're asking for too much. The mistake I made was not pouring into my own cup first. And then from whatever runneth over, then giving to them. And then having boundaries, y'all. I had to learn boundaries. Boundaries cannot be self-empowered. I cannot be in my power without being able to learn boundaries. What I was willing to give, what I was not willing to take. But in the process of all this, I had to close my heart. Y'all, I got cold. And it makes sense because I was hurt so much. I had a lot of knives stuck in my heart because of the heartbreak and the betrayal that I experienced. That I had to close my heart off so I could heal. And I'm never doing that again, y'all. Closing your, that was one of the few times, the only time in my life that I closed my heart off in that way, because I needed to heal it. It had suffered through so much that I was just like, I can't deal with another human love, connection. But the part is that when I closed myself off to heal, I closed my heart off to myself and to everything. You can't just close your heart off for one thing and then be like, oh, okay, I'll keep it open for the other. That's not how it works. And so, because of all that heartbreak and loss, I was in a very cold and detached space. I had to learn how to revitalize my heart, which meant healing it. Little by little, plucking up the thorns within it. Patching it up. Being very careful who I shared it with. Allowing myself to be selective. Something I didn't do before. Before I was just like, everyone deserves love. I'm gonna pour love into you, into you, into you. You get love, you get love. Look under your seat. There's love. Everyone deserves love, but not everyone deserves my love. Not in an intimate way. And that's something I had to learn. To be selective. Knowing that, yeah, I love you. You're listening, yo. You are listening to me today, and I love you. I do. And there's a depth of relationship of relating to me that only few receive. Select. And I had to learn that it was okay for me to be selective in that way. That I was deserving to choose whom I poured love into and to expect I get poured back into. It's not a tit for tat, it's a reciprocity of being in balanced harmony and love. But first I had to get right with me, y'all. I had to get right with me. Being celibate and single for 3 years. Not dating. Still not dating. Not engaging intimately. So that I could understand within what was going on. So I could learn to be my own lover first. One of my ex-friends, I remember telling them, people get bold off my love. And I realized if people getting bold off my love, what would it look like if I gave me my love? I'd get bold too. Hey! Bold. And that's where I'm at, y'all. Like, that is where I'm at. I got bold off my love. Because I allowed myself to learn the lessons and to take the time to heal and to understand what it was that I was deserving of and what wasn't me, what was taught to me. The attachment, learning to be in a secure attachment. And to begin to see the past relationship not as a like, yes, I was treated wrongly, and I'm definitely not excusing anything that those people did to me or how they harmed me. And being able to see it from a higher perspective, to see the relationship from a higher perspective of what was I meant to learn? What was this relationship trying to teach me? What were the lessons, the soul lessons I was meant to learn so I could grow? And so I don't ever have to go through these relationships or any of them again. So I transcend these types of people in my life. And so that's that on that, y'all. That's part 2. Part 10. And y'all, let me tell you, it's been a journey. Healing. Not only just from those relationships, but healing the root foundation of what led to those relationships. Having to face my past, my childhood, my parental figures, the attachment wounds, the neglect, the emotional abandonment, the abuse, all of it. It was a lot. But I am stronger for it. Better for it. More empowered for it. And so that's where I'm going to leave us today. I actually want to go to the gym and it's getting dark. So let's call it an end. As always, motley crew, thank you for taking your time, your space, wherever, whenever you are, for listening, for being with me as I share my story. I don't take it for granted. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. Donate. If you're moved by the spirit of generosity, add yourself to the newsletter so you can get updated when I have any workshops or one-on-one sessions or any other things that I offer. And with that, I close off this space and send you off with love. So take care.